So, what's the problem with 1941? Well, as Spielberg says,
we're also missing a lot of humor. You know, we should make this comedy funnier.
Spielberg charitably allows for the fact that the movie might have been better if Robert Zemeckis had directed it himself, but from the evidence of the story, I'm not sure it would have been very good in anyone's hands. The central problem is that there are too many damn characters, which is always because no single character is interesting enough on its own. I recognize that strategy, I've used it myself, it never works. Cinematically, Spielberg clearly saw it mainly as an opportunity to
break a lot of stuff.
Which can be fun, and if the movie had been 90 minutes of just this, it may have been pretty entertaining in a similar kind of release your frustrations at the monotony of suburbia that we see in Close Encounters, but as it stands, we have about 2 hours of pretty lackluster dialogue until we get there. Maybe we should simply see 1941 as the necessary training ground for the genuinely funny movie to come after it. In a way, Raiders is just as historically revisionist for comedic purposes as 1941 is, perhaps because it doesn't focus on comedy, the humor works much better. As everyone knows, like Star Wars, Indiana Jones satirizes old matinee serials where there's a cliffhanger around every corner and where ancient civilizations managed to construct some kind of movement sensor for the sole reason of testing the protagonist. Harrison Ford is at least entirely clear on this.
Indiana Jones movies were always more about movies than they were about anything else.
And both Spielberg and Lucas were clear that this was self-consciously a
B-picture.
But just because you self-consciously reference something doesn't mean it's good to reference, especially if the thing you're referencing wasn't very good to begin with. Then you end up with the kind of joke in 1941 Spielberg is describing here.
It was hysterical, but it was so inside. Only I knew it was funny, and only Bob and Bob knew it was funny, that it was the kind of thing that it was better, you know, left out of the movie. It was too much of an inside gag.
The problem with 1941 is, of course, that the whole damn thing is one big inside gag. But Raiders is a bit of an inside gag also, though an entirely successful one. So what's the difference? I think we can trace even Indiana Jones back to a heightened sense of realism, as weird as that sounds. Why does Indy get the shit kicked out of him all the time? I think the best part of Raiders is clearly the truck chase, which is one of the greatest action scenes ever put on film. The moment that always gets me is when Indy gets shot in the arm and the Nazi guy just kind of punches him in the wound. And the way Harrison's body just convulses makes it seem so goddamn painful. And I think that's what's at the heart of Indiana Jones. The way Harrison Ford plays pain and his willingness to play pain makes the films so much more human and real than they otherwise would have been. My favorite moment in the film is this scene, which is interestingly the first time we hear the Indiana Jones theme in full. This makes it feel like some sort of victory lap, but it's not entirely clear what we're celebrating. But it's as if what we're celebrating is simply the persistence, the fact that Indy just goes for it without having a clue what to do. The fact that he's
making this up as I go.
Which is so admirable. I think Spielberg relates deeply to that trait in Indiana Jones, having to make things up on the fly, having to improvise, getting out of bad scrapes just in the nick of time, trying everything and anything. I think Spielberg sees a lot of filmmaking itself as being a bit of an Indiana Jones adventure.